been some conversations kind of exploring the possibility of the Raptors trading for Sabonis, saying that the Raptors had interest. But now it really feels like those rumors are starting to absolutely heat up. And the Raptors have legitimate interest in trading for Domantas Sabonis, according to reports. So let's talk about the reports around the interest, how valid they are. Then let's talk about what Domantas Sabonis could do for the team. We'll talk about what the Raptors have to trade for him, and we'll discuss if the Raptors should actually move forward and try to trade for him. Lots of reports coming out. We've had a few people talk about it, but I think in particular, the big one that we need to look at is from Jake Fisher. I think he left Yahoo, but anyways, he's been a source that has been very in tune with the Raptors in the last few years, and he has continued to report the dealings surrounding Domantas Sabonis. So let's listen into what he had to say recently on the situation.
Sabonis has interest from Toronto. We've continued to report that, but it'll be tricky to find an agreement there, being that the Raptors, to my understanding, are really just trying to look at what they can get for a combination of Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, and Jakob Poeltl. And the Kings do not want long-term salary on their books right now. Sabonis.
So that's where some of the complications come into play. I think a lot of what the Raptors have been doing, and I agree there, is they're trying to get off some contracts here. They've been trying to get out the RJ Barrett contract for about a year now. They've been unsuccessful in doing that in the past. You know, it's been clear to see. RJ Barrett's got a year and a half left of his contract. The Raptors have wanted to get rid of this contract. But as this season has gone on, it's starting to kind of shift towards, well, actually, this Emmanuel Quickley contract's probably worse. And the Jakob Poeltl contract they just freaking gave him is like, well, we're worried about this being actually bad, even though they like, at least the Quickley one's a year and a half old. The Poeltl one is freshly signed. Like the ink's just getting dry on that one. So obviously they've put themselves in a pretty horrific spot there. And it kind of like, as Fisher was saying there, it's as if the Raptors are just looking around the league to see who will take it on. Well, the Sacramento Kings could have a little bit of an interest in getting off of Sabonis' contract. Like, you know, they don't want to pile on bigger contract, but they could have an interest in getting off of Sabonis' contract. There could be a interest on their part from, you know, getting draft capital to do it, and maybe they'd be willing to take on a longer-term contract in order to make that happen. There's a lot of things at play here, but before we get into, like, the trade and what it could look like, let's get into, like, what Sabonis has been doing for the Kings. So, age 29 season, and production is a lot lower than it has been. Here's a guy who's received votes for MVP twice in the last 4 years. He's been an all-star now 3 times, twice with Indiana. Moved to Sacramento, of course, in the Tyrese Halliburton trade, which I think was a horrific trade for the Kings. But, like, you know, they had success after. They were a 3 seed 1 year with Sabonis and Fox. He's been All-NBA third team on 2 occasions, but the Kings have fallen off, and he is not performing well this season. And I think the big issue always associated with Domantas Sabonis, as much as he's like a very talented offensive hub, really good scorer, double-double machine, a triple-double threat on most nights, as much as production is down this season on this version of the Kings team, the issues have always stemmed from he's not a reliable enough floor spacer. Like, sure, he can shoot the 3 ball, but he's not like a super reliable floor spacer. That's fine. You know, teams you can get around. At least he can shoot the 3 and has a threat from out there. Where there's been bigger issues is the fact that he's not a good defender. He's not somebody who helps you on defense, doesn't protect the rim well, and he has become very expensive for the Kings. Like, you know, he was valuable enough they thought to trade Tyrese Halliburton in order to get him. And there's absolutely quality within this player, no doubt. But I think if you are building a team around this much money being invested into your center, you really need to have one that's solidified on defense, or is a incredibly much more dynamic threat from a floor spacing standpoint. And Sabonis is neither of these things. Like, he's neither a super, gravity shifting floor spacer. I mean, this season he's shooting 17%. That's way down from normal. But defensively, that has never been his strong suit. Teams try to get him out in space, and it can lead to issues. The Raptors, I guess, have this season not had that sort of traditional anchor on defense and have been very successful defensively with the likes of, Murray Boyles playing there, Mamoukelashvili playing there, sometimes Scotty Barnes as the small ball five. So maybe they're thinking they can still find success, but it's a big contract and a lot that you have to trade in order to do this. And this year, I'm not like super concerned. Like, his stats are way down, 15.4 points, 11.4 rebounds. I think it's a bad situation in Sacramento, and I think those numbers would go up if he got traded, but I have my reservations against what Sabonis could do on the court for the Raptors. But for the sake of like what we're arguing here, let's try and decipher what the trade would have to look like for the Raptors to pull it off. Like, is there a good trade we could do? Could we get off a bad contract and do this? Because Sabonis, his contract right now, he's making $42.3 million. That goes up to $45.4 next year, $48.6 the year after that. It's a big contract. 2.5 more years of it, but it's a big contract for Sabonis. A lot of money to tie up there. He'd become the most expensive player on the Raptors. So let's discuss here. If you're going to do this trade for me, you got to get up to that number. You're obviously not trading Scotty Barnes. You're obviously not trading Brandon Ingram. I do not see why they would want Emmanuel Quickley. If you're trading for a center, I've maintained I don't want two centers, like two high paid centers. Pirtle's got to be in the deal. If you're going to get to the $42 million, you kind of have no choice. You have to include RJ Barrett. I want to get a little bit of value back. I think you could go for Keon Ellis. He's been out of favor with the Kings. I think as a shooting guard, he could bring a lot of good qualities to the Raptors. Good size, good amount of floor spacing. I think he'd play a really good role for the Raptors. I think he could even start for the Raptors if you were to move RJ Barrett. I'm not saying Keon is not as good as RJ Barrett. I'm not saying that whatsoever, but he's a quality player who I think could fit the starting role and complement guys in the starting five. If you're doing this, you're getting off a really bad contract, it seems, right now with Pirtle. I think you have to give a pick. Let's say this year's pick goes to the Kings. Give them some draft capital in this tanking season. I think this works. Yeah. I think that's realistically what the trade would have to look like here. And I understand you're getting off of the Pirtle contract, and that's a plus. But Sabonis is not a good defender, not a super reliable shooter on offense. Like, really, Domantas Sabonis, where he's been successful is as a role man with like a quality point guard like De'Aaron Fox in the past, or it has been like he's your offensive hub. And it doesn't really make sense for me to trade for an offensive hub when you kind of like you have one. That's what Scotty Barnes is for. That's your offensive hub. So why trade for a $42.3 million offensive hub that has like a bunch of weaknesses to his game when RJ Barrett is providing you quality play and is helping your team win this season? This one is not really working for me. I continue to not be super enthused about the idea of trading for Sabonis. If they do it, like, this is probably the best they could do out of it. Like, at least you're still getting Keon Ellis. Sabonis I'm sure would play well for the Raptors, but that's a lot of money to commit to something I don't think is an ideal fit next to the two players you're really trying to build around, in particular the player trying to build around with Scotty Barnes. So for me, I don't want to go for Sabonis. I don't. I could see why the Raptors would consider something like this. Like the Pirtle contract, there's 3.5 more years before the $5 million guarantee for the 5th year, so it's not fully guaranteed. Sabonis only 2.5 years. You get off the RJ Barrett contract here, what the Raptors seem to want to do. But again, I think your team is better by not making this trade. And I don't think this changes your contract situation that drastically, But I mean, there might be where I think this trade would have to where it could get legs is if you are like that fearful of Pirtle's health going forward. Like if this is going to be a year-over-year problem, this might be your way out of that Pirtle contract. I could see that being a part where the Raptors take like enough of a positive to want to do this, but I am hesitant here. And to be honest, I think the Kings would kind of be hesitant as well to take that big of a Pirtle contract. But with a pick going in as well, with RJ Barrett coming off in a couple of seasons, a season and a half, maybe there is desire there. I think this is like, I think like from a pure value perspective, this is pretty fair. I just, on a personal level, don't really want to do it. And judging by my glances over at our live chat here, doesn't seem like a lot of these guys really want to go for it.